Welcome to Tripodcast, episode 327. It's Monday, November 11th, and the first thing I want to do is wish my wife a very happy anniversary. In today's Tripodcast, Dick's going to talk about some strategies and tactics for developing a strong working relationship with your banker. Let's listen in.
I want to talk a little bit in this podcast about working with your banker. You know, as a consultant, one of the privileges I have is to work with a lot of startup, young, emerging companies. And one of the things that I always talk with them about is you need to establish a banking relationship as soon as possible. And so many of them, and so many contractors, so many BSCs that I know wait until all of a sudden they've had a reversal in their fortunes, or they've started this new account and they need some cash. And now, oh gosh, I got to go to the bank. And one of the things that I always say to them is, get the banker on board now. And so I thought I might just spend a little bit of time pointing out to you some of the things that we need to make sure we do as we're getting ready, as we're talking to a banker, as we're getting our ducks on the pond, so to speak, to be ready when the time comes that we need the cash. And some of you have maybe heard me say in the past that my banker loaned me money. When I was in the contracting business, my banker loaned me money sometimes when I wouldn't have loaned me money. But it was because I think we had done the groundwork necessary to establish a relationship. And he told me more than once that he didn't have to worry about me paying back the money because he knew I was worrying enough about it. And he was absolutely right. So let me give you 3 or 4 pointers on working with a banker. First of all, and I've already said this, establish a relationship before you need to borrow and get to know them. And I might also add here, you know, in the last few years, it's become very difficult to borrow money actually for a small business. So some of these points are particularly important at this juncture in our business life. I started early on to borrow small amounts even when I didn't need them. And then I would pay them back early so that I could establish a track record. And I know there are those of you listening to this that say never borrow money, don't borrow money, don't get involved. But I'm telling you that it may be that interest, that small amount of interest that you'll pay on borrowing small amounts until you need larger amounts is well worth the investment. Secondly, meet with your banker regularly. Let me suggest that really you treat your banker just as you would a key customer or prospect. Keep them in the loop of what's going on in your business. That's critical, I think, because they'll eventually find the negatives, especially in today's business climate, if you're trying to hide something. My banker was actually on my appointment calendar just as my key prospects were. I would have them come to my office, tour the place, talk with my key people, and then we'd go to lunch. And sometimes I even bought. But again, I had them as part of my, just as if they were a key prospect or a key customer. I thought that was very important. And then thirdly, you want to provide professionally prepared current financial statements. And this goes back to having early in your business career, having an established accountant or establishing an accountant relationship and getting professionally prepared statements. The days of the old cigar box accounting need to really be gone, I should say. Get quarterly statements and then provide them to the bank. Keep them in, even if you're not borrowing money at the current time, send them the statement so that they have it in their file, because I'm telling you, when the time comes that you need to borrow money, and if you haven't provided the statements, they will be asking for all kinds of things. They'll be wanting to know last year's statement, the year before that. How many cats do you have? How many dogs do you have? How many children do you have? And if you can keep them, that was facetious. But if you give them monthly and quarterly statements, they will. It'd be so much easier when the time comes for you to borrow money. Keep the banker informed. chances are sometime during the life of your business, cash flow is not going to be the way you wish it would be. I know it wasn't for me. In fact, how about right now? How's your cash flow right now? Doing great? Hope so. But if not, have you been to see the banker? And if your cash flow is not good right now, have you established that banking relationship? When it occurs that the cash flow isn't what it ought to be, meet with the banker. Tell them of the situation that you have before it becomes painfully apparent that you're in that situation. I had the opportunity lots of times, and I put a question mark behind the word opportunity several times to meet with the banker and say, we're a little short right now, but I never really had a problem with that because they always understood, because I kept them in the loop of what was going on. Now, I'm not talking about if you're on the verge of bankruptcy. Now you got to tell them. I'm just saying sometimes things don't go the way. You lose an account that you didn't think you were going to lose. You do a startup that maybe takes more cash than you thought it was going to, and those are legitimate business issues that occur. But again, don't hide it. Tell them. Keep them informed. And there's some things about picking a banker that we're not going to talk about in this particular podcast. I wanted to, in this podcast, make sure that you did the homework you needed to do and you did the relationship with the banker that you needed to have. So keep those things in mind. Borrow before you need to. Tell them when things aren't going so well. Give them regular statements. And if you do that, you'll have a much better chance of borrowing money at a time when maybe things aren't so good. And maybe at a time that I've told you earlier that they might loan you money when you maybe wouldn't loan you money. So keep those things in mind. The banking relationship that you have can be a major help in your success or a major deterrent and drive you down. So keep that in mind. Thanks for watching us.
You've been listening to a Tripodcast, short video and audio presentation about important topics in our industry. If you're a current subscriber to the Tripodcast, thank you. We appreciate it. If you're not yet a subscriber, please check it out. It's free and it's easy. Come to www.tripodcast.com, enter your email address on the right-hand column, and click subscribe. We'll send you out a new Tripodcast every Monday morning.